What if I told you that in the heart of the Middle East, thousands of miles away from Manila, Tel Aviv, and Jerusalem echo with words spoken in Tagalog? That in Israel, a country where Hebrew and Arabic dominate the streets, another language has quietly woven itself into daily life. A language that doesn't belong to its geography, yet thrives because of the people who carried it there, the Filipinos. This is not just a story about migration. It's not just about language. It's about survival, sacrifice, and the hidden influence of one of the most hardworking communities in the world. By the end of this video, you'll understand why Tagalog is becoming Israel's unofficial second language, and why the Filipino story in Israel is one of the most powerful untold narratives of our time. To understand how this happened, we need to go back to the 1990s. Israel, like much of the world, was facing a demographic challenge. Families needed caregivers for their aging parents. Hospitals and households alike required skilled, compassionate workers who could fill a role that was both demanding and deeply human. Enter the Filipinos. Known worldwide for their care, dedication, and warmth, thousands of Filipinos answered the call. At first, many came on temporary contracts. The work wasn't easy. It meant leaving their own families behind in the Philippines, often for years at a time. But the opportunity was too important to ignore. They could earn in Israel what would take far longer back home, send money to their families, and build better futures for their children. It was a sacrifice of distance, but also an act of love. Over time, the Filipino presence in Israel grew. Today, it's estimated that over 30,000 Filipinos live and work in Israel, the vast majority employed as caregivers. But this statistic only scratches the surface of their impact. Because when a community embeds itself so deeply into the most personal spaces of society, the home, it leaves behind more than just labor. It leaves language, culture, and trust. Walk into many Israeli homes today, and you might hear something unexpected. Children calling out salamat instead of toda. Elderly grandparents comforted not only in Hebrew but in Tagalog. Families learning Filipino words just to connect with the caregivers who have become part of their lives. Language, after all, is more than vocabulary. It is intimacy. And in Israel, the intimacy between Filipino caregivers and the families they serve has quietly transformed Tagalog into a second language of care. But why Tagalog, specifically? The answer lies in both practicality and culture. The Philippines is one of the largest English-speaking countries in the world, which makes Filipinos easy to integrate into foreign environments. Yet while English is used for work, it's Tagalog that slips into daily conversations. Caregivers speak it to each other, sing lullabies in it, or use it instinctively when showing affection. Slowly, Israelis began to pick it up: words, phrases, expressions. Children especially absorb it quickly. For them, Tagalog becomes a natural part of their vocabulary, another way of expressing warmth. This blending of languages is not just accidental. It reflects the deeper bond that develops between Filipinos and Israelis. For many families, caregivers are not employees but almost relatives. They share meals, celebrate holidays, and often stay for years. The Filipino presence becomes interwoven with the family's story, and with it, Tagalog becomes part of their household language. What's even more fascinating is how this has spread beyond private homes. In markets, in churches, even in some workplaces, you can hear Tagalog spoken openly. In Tel Aviv and Jerusalem, Filipino communities gather on weekends, transforming parks and public spaces into little Manilas filled with food, laughter, and song. Israelis who pass by don't just hear Hebrew or Arabic anymore. They hear Tagalog, a reminder that Israel is more global than it appears. And here's the irony. In a land known for its conflicts over language and identity, the adoption of Tagalog has happened quietly, without debate or controversy. It hasn't been politicized. It hasn't been resisted. Instead, it's been welcomed, embraced in daily life, because it arrived not with politics but with kindness. But language is only the surface. To truly understand why Tagalog resonates in Israel, we must look at the values that Filipinos bring with them. Compassion, patience, and resilience. These are not just stereotypes. They are lived realities. For elderly Israelis, many of whom carry the trauma of war, displacement, or loneliness, Filipino caregivers provide not only physical support but emotional healing. They don't just give medicine, they give dignity. They don't just perform tasks, they form bonds, and in return, Israelis have come to respect and admire the Filipino spirit. Many describe them as family, as indispensable. This mutual trust has created a cultural exchange that goes beyond economics. It has made Tagalog not just a language of work, but a language of love. This is why, in playgrounds and living rooms, you'll sometimes hear children speaking sentences that blend Hebrew and Tagalog. This is why in synagogues and churches, prayers may carry accents from Manila. This is why in Israel, of all places, Tagalog is becoming a second language. Yet behind this story of connection lies a deeper truth, one that reveals both the strength and the vulnerability of the Filipino diaspora. Because while Filipinos are celebrated for their contributions, they also carry heavy sacrifices. Families separated for years, parents missing the childhoods of their own kids so they can care for someone else's, the quiet loneliness of living abroad in a culture not your own. These are the untold costs of being a nation's secret strength. And yet, despite all this, Filipinos endure. They adapt. They smile. And in doing so, they leave behind more than remittances or labor. They leave behind language, culture, and love that reshapes the places they go. But to really understand why Tagalog is becoming Israel's second language, we need to look even closer at the daily lives of both Filipinos and Israelis, and the deep connections that tie them together to see the full impact of Filipinos in Israel. You need to walk through Tel Aviv on a Sunday afternoon. It's their day off, and suddenly the quiet corners of the city transform. Public squares fill with laughter, karaoke machines echo with familiar Tagalog songs, and stalls sell adobo, pancit, and halo halo. It feels like a slice of Manila transplanted into the Middle East. Israelis strolling by often stop, curious at the sights and smells, some even joining in. This visibility matters because it shows that Filipinos are not hidden in Israel. They are present, vibrant, and proud. And with their presence comes their language, Tagalog spoken freely and confidently in the open air. But the spread of Tagalog isn't just social or cultural. It's also generational. Children who grew up with Filipino caregivers often retain words and phrases into adulthood. Some even continue speaking Tagalog long after their caregivers have left. It becomes part of their emotional vocabulary, a reminder of the warmth and care they experienced in their formative years. Imagine growing up with bedtime stories told in Tagalog, or songs sung in Filipino lullabies. Those words stay with you, even if Hebrew is your primary language. In fact, some Israeli parents admit they learned Tagalog themselves just to communicate better with caregivers or to share in the cultural bond. Over time, what began as a functional tool, a word here, a phrase there, evolves into genuine familiarity. It's no longer strange to hear Tagalog expressions peppered into conversations, not just in private homes, but even in public spaces. And this points to something deeper: the recognition of Filipinos not just as workers, but as culture bearers. Their influence goes beyond caregiving. It shapes the way Israelis see the world. Many young Israelis exposed to Filipinos grow up with a broader sense of global awareness, realizing from an early age that identity can be multi-layered, and that language can be more than national pride, it can be human connection. This connection is reinforced through religion. The Philippines is one of the most devoutly Christian nations in Asia, while Israel is the Jewish homeland. On the surface, their faith traditions seem worlds apart. Yet on Sundays, Filipino church services in Israel overflow with worshipers, and many Israeli families join or support them. In moments like this, Tagalog prayers and Hebrew blessings share the same air. It's a powerful symbol of coexistence, one forged not in politics but in daily relationships. But here's the untold part of the story. While Tagalog spreads and Filipino culture thrives, the reality of life for many overseas Filipino workers, or OFWs, remains difficult. Their contracts are temporary, their rights sometimes fragile, and their ability to stay long-term is limited. Many live with the knowledge that one day they may have to leave the families they've come to love and return home. This uncertainty doesn't erase the bonds they've built, but it makes them bittersweet. And yet, despite the challenges, Filipinos remain one of Israel's most trusted communities. Their reputation for reliability, kindness, and adaptability means that demand for their work continues. And with every new caregiver who arrives, Tagalog spreads a little further, embedding itself deeper into the rhythms of Israeli life. What makes this story remarkable is the irony at its heart. Israel is a country defined by its struggles over language, identity, and belonging. Hebrew itself was revived as a national language to unify a people scattered across the world. Arabic remains central for millions of citizens. And yet, in this contested linguistic landscape, Tagalog has slipped in quietly, not as a rival, but as a companion. A language of healing, of care, of trust. Think about that. In a region where languages can divide, Tagalog unites. It bridges caregiver and patient, worker and employer, foreigner and host. It doesn't arrive with power or politics. It arrives with kindness. And that kindness makes it unforgettable. For Israel, the Filipino story is more than just a migration trend. It is a reminder that nations are shaped not only by armies, governments, or treaties, but also by ordinary people who cross oceans to make a living. People whose sacrifices leave imprints far beyond their own families. In Israel's case, that imprint is Tagalog, spoken in homes, remembered in childhoods, and preserved in hearts. And for the Philippines, this story is equally important. It shows the strength of its people, the global reach of its culture, and the quiet but undeniable power of its diaspora. Filipinos may leave their homeland physically, but they carry it with them in language, music, and values. Everywhere they go, they plant seeds of their identity, and those seeds grow in unexpected places, even in the heart of Israel. So, why is Tagalog becoming Israel's second language? The answer is simple but profound. Because Filipinos brought more than labor. They brought love. Because families trusted them not just with tasks, but with their children, their parents, and their most vulnerable moments. Because language is the vessel of care, and in Israel, care speaks Tagalog. This is the Untold Filipino story. A story of resilience, of sacrifice, of global influence built not through power, but through compassion. And it is a story still unfolding. As long as Filipinos continue to journey abroad, their language, their culture, and their spirit will continue to leave marks on the world, marks that cannot be erased. So the next time you hear Tagalog spoken in a Tel Aviv park or whispered in an Israeli home, remember what it represents. Not just words, but connections. Not just a language, but a bridge between nations. And above all, the quiet, powerful truth that sometimes the strongest influence comes not from those in positions of power, but from those who serve with humility and heart. That is why Tagalog is becoming Israel's second language. And that is why the Filipino story deserves to be told.